live in a truly exciting time for the horror genre. In recent years, a number of innovative filmmakers have stepped up to deliver a number of instant classics. These films, ranging from hilariously absurd to downright spine-tingling, have won the respect of even the most hard-to-please horror fanatics. But which films are the best of the past 10 years? Which films will send you out of the theater screaming and cheering all at once? Hello, welcome to Round the Clock Frights. I'm Joshua Essenberg, and I'm here to discuss what I believe to be the top 10 best horror films of the past 10 years. As someone who has seen, hundreds of horror films, I had plenty to choose from. So let's get started, boils and ghouls. Number 10, Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. Fan favorites Alan Tudyk and Tyler Labine star in a downright hilarious send-up of the slasher subgenre. The premise is this. Two lovable redneck friends are mistaken by a group of pretentious college kids as bloodthirsty serial killers. That setup alone indicates to the audience that we're in for a hysterical ride. And indeed, this film features a number of gut-busting slapstick bits, my favorite being the incident with the wood chipper. One of the funniest scenes I've ever witnessed in any film. Ever. But what really makes this film stand out is the emotional depth. We fully buy these two as lifelong friends. And when one of them develops a surprisingly touching romance with one of the college students, the film becomes much more than just a goofy farce. Not only is it one of the funniest movies I've seen in recent years, it's also one of the most clever and subversive horror films. Number 9, Krampus. Director Michael Dougherty, an outspoken fan of monster movies, delivers a wonderful throwback to the horror comedies of the 80s like Gremlins and Critters. All of the monsters here are amazingly designed, Krampus included. They look straight out of a Jim Henson nightmare. I'll admit, the human characters aren't exactly the most well-developed, but they're entertaining enough. And there's a handful of brilliant sequences that downgrade the idea of Christmas being this happy, jubilant time of year. The opening scene alone is pitch perfect, brilliantly mocking how obsessive and crazy people get during the holidays. Also, special props to the beautifully animated segment that shows up in the middle of the film. Great atmosphere, cool monsters, and an appropriate ending make Krampus an instant Christmas horror classic. Number 8, Let Me In. An American remake of a terrific Swedish title, Let Me In takes the fairly standard idea of a little boy befriending the new girl in his neighborhood and twists it into something truly dark and menacing. The original Let the Right One In is already seen as one of the best horror films in recent years. The remake is more than serviceable, with amazing child performances from Cody Smith-McPhee and Chloe Grace Moretz. Their relationship is touching, but also a bit concerning, which is understandable given that he is a human boy and she's a vampire, and the fact that they're both lost souls makes their bond even more potent. But really, when you take away the supernatural elements, Let Me In is still a compelling tale of friendship and loss. Also, I just love winter settings in horror films, especially when they're at the service of something so creepy and ominous. And Let Me In is a damn fine remake. Number 7, Oculus. Anyone who knows me knows of my current fascination with director Mike Flanagan. Instead of imitating the current trend of having things jump out of nowhere, Flanagan is more prone to having creepy things standing silent in the background, and Oculus is a prime example of his refreshing style. This is technically a ghost story, but like Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, what really makes this film unnerving is the sight of this peaceful family just completely falling apart. Domestic abuse is already an issue that really gets under my skin, so as you can imagine, watching the father in this film turn more and more vicious and psychopathic was a pretty chilling experience. The two leads, played by Karen Gillan and Brenton Thwaites, are quite good, making us question whether or not ghosts exist, or if these siblings are simply losing their minds. Some criticize the film for being a bit familiar and predictable, but because of Flanagan's expert direction and the astounding performances by all the leads, I found it to be an effective, supernatural thriller. Number 6, Drag Me to Hell. Sam Raimi, who made a name for himself directing a number of wacky, over-the-top horror extravaganzas, returned to his roots with a criminally underrated Drag Me to Hell. I must admit, when I first saw this movie, I was already familiar with Raimi's over-the-top style, so I instantly took a liking to this film. But it seemed as if modern audiences were a bit more confused on how to feel. Those who wanted to take it seriously as a horror film labeled it as stupid, goofy, and downright irritating. But For those viewers like myself, who grew up viewing such silly horror comedies as Evil Dead 2, we understood right away what he was going for. The film also has some pretty biting commentary on how exploitive and uncaring the financial systems of America can be, throwing the poor and less fortunate out onto the streets without batting an eye. Combine that commentary with Raimi's trademark energetic style, and you have yourself a pretty fun time at the movies. Also, that ending. Yeah, even if it's a tad predictable, it's still one of the most hilarious middle fingers ever given to an audience. I loved it. Number 5, It. Director Andy Muschietti took my favorite Stephen King novel and adapted it respectably for the big screen. The film, like the novel, is an effective tale about growing up and confronting your own worst fears. Classic scenes from the book are recreated amazingly in this film, particularly the infamous sewer scene. Some were a bit turned off by the numerous jump scares in this film, even though few of them are fake-outs and actually deliver on the horror aspects, but I see it as a fun carnival ride of a film, where you can have fun with what's being thrown at your face, with Bill Skarsgård delivering an iconic villain in Pennywise the Clown. Real quick, I will say I prefer his surreal, otherworldly take on Pennywise, as opposed to Tim Curry's. There's always something off about this Pennywise, whereas I never really bought Curry as an otherworldly being. Throw in some fantastic kid performances by, well, all of the leads, and you have one of the better Stephen King films of the past decade. Number 4, The Conjuring. At first glance, this may come off as yet another by-the-numbers movie about ghosts and hauntings, but what really elevates it are two things: director James Wan's understanding of build-up and tension, and the performances by Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga. Wan does an amazing job with the scares in this film. Often the camera will linger on something for an incredibly long period of time, making you feel almost sick to your stomach. Then, at the perfect moment, he'll hit you over the head with a well-timed scare. Wanna play hide and clap? Wilson and Farmiga are simply outstanding. You totally buy them as this happily married couple who are forced to live with the misconception that they're nothing but a couple of weirdos. They really carry this film. And to be honest, I just love horror movies that are set in the 70s. It's one of my favorite decades, so of course I have a soft spot for films like this. Number 3, Zombieland. I almost gave the spot to Overlord, the acclaimed World War II zombie flick produced by J.J. Abrams, but I personally prefer the grungy, heavy metal style of Zombieland a bit more. The writers of this film, who would go on to pen both Deadpool movies, contribute new and fresh ideas to the zombie mythos. The main character, played by twitchy Jesse Eisenberg, has his own set of rules to survive the zombie apocalypse. Then comes Woody Harrelson, a careless zombie slayer who prefers to live without rules. Their entertaining camaraderie really makes the zombie film soar. There's one word to describe this movie, and that's awesome. The comedic set pieces are clever and well-paced, the action scenes are energetic and lively, and of course, there's that Bill Murray cameo. It's a film that wants you to have a good time. After all, you gotta enjoy the little things. Number 2, Train to Busan. Man, where to even start with Train to Busan, the greatest zombie film I've seen in a long, long time. It's a heartwarming story of an estranged father going to incredible lengths to protect his daughter during a zombie outbreak. It's more of a compelling family drama than anything, with South Korean actor Yu Gong giving an astounding performance. Whoever came up with the idea of setting a zombie film on a fast-moving bullet train should be given all the awards. But what really makes this film an indelible masterpiece is the emotional weight it carries. It shows the sacrifices a parent will make in order to keep their loved ones safe. Like all great zombie movies, it also provides some really biting, commentary on society, mainly how people often turn into ravenous animals at the first sign of trouble. The ending turned me into an emotional wreck. Tears were streaming down my cheeks. Train to Busan is an amazing film, and if you're avoiding it simply because you don't like foreign movies, then you're really missing out. The best horror film of the past 10 years is The Babadook. Yes, I'm well aware of some people's disdain for this film. Many were expecting a monster movie but were instead treated to a psychological drama about this grieving mother trying to raise her annoying, needy child. But for me, I found The Babadook to be a simply wonderful movie. The Babadook itself is a scary metaphor for grief and depression. The way this film explores the struggles of single motherhood makes it much more powerful and lasting than your run-of-the-mill monster movie. Even the ending, which some people took a bit too literally, ties into the idea that one must contain their own fears when raising a child. On a final note, Essie Davis gives one of the best performances ever in a horror film. Fuck off, Academy Awards. Thank you so much for joining me in my discussion of the top 10 best horror films of the past 10 years. Our channel, Round the Clock Frights, is growing more every day, but we would love to have your support as well. Thanks again for watching, and have a scary day, boils and ghouls.